Hello, in this video we are going to be talking about the moon, and I'm going to give you my opinion if a full moon or new moon can affect the emotions or behavior of the people and so on. I will try to do this in a skeptical way, scientific way, and in a spiritual way. I would say that I am 90% convinced, maybe more, maybe 99, that full moon and new moon is affecting me. When it's full moon, I am more anxious and not really, I don't feel really good. And during the new moon, I feel kind of depressed. I feel like, life is ending or something, and yeah. And I have been seeing this behavior on me for a long time, and even before I knew about full moon or new moon, I mean before I was considering that there can be some kind of effect, I can remember in my past days when I felt like it's a new moon, even without knowing that it was a new moon, So maybe for 4 or 5 years I have been noticing this, but I can remember that 7 years ago, that day probably was a new moon because I felt like I am feeling right now during the new moon. So yeah, one of the options is that it is all just a placebo effect, that it is something that we made up and there is nothing with the full moon, there is nothing with the new moon, which would mean that there is, probably no astrology or something like that. And yeah, I don't think that it is the option. It's like the option, but I don't think it is like so. But we have to consider this. Placebo effect can be very strong, and I know when is full moon, and I know when is new moon. Sometimes I'm not going to check, what's the specific day for the full moon or new moon, but eventually I always check, so yeah. Okay, the other option is that it is not the placebo effect, it is something very real, but it is something which is not, like a spiritual thing, but more like an evolutionary thing, okay? I am not one more time claiming that it is like so or saying that it is like so. This is just one of the possibilities. Once I read some article about this and it made sense. So yeah, but I am also going to add a little bit of my perspective. So imagine that our ancestors were, living in the forest or living, in a caves for a very long time, for 100,000 years, maybe million years, with the evolution. And some of these tribes may had some kind of celebrations or some kind of, dancing or something during the full moon. And imagine that there would be some kind of civilization, our ancestors, or some tribes, every single every single full moon, they would gather, they would be up during the night, they would be dancing, they would be, drumming, they would be maybe taking some psychedelics or something. And imagine that if they are going to do this for 100,000 years or more, it can be passed in our DNA, in our genes, that on that day they had different emotions. When you are going to get high and you are going to dance whole night and you are going to do it every single time on a full moon for 1,000 years or for 100,000 years, it can pass some kind of emotion to the DNA or something. I am not scientist, so I do not know exactly, but there can be, in us, somewhere in the DNA or somewhere in the cell, written that on the new moon on the full moon there was like a party, dancing. They had these uplifting emotions or weird emotions or something, and yeah. Also, it can come from animals, because when you have a full moon, it means that some animals are going to hunt, because there is more light, so it can be easier to hunt. And when some animals are going to hunt more, it means that some animals are going to be hunted more, And one more time, this can, be something in our DNA even before the humans, that, on a full moon, there is more light, you are going to hunt, and your behavior is going to be a little bit different than normal, or you are going to be hunted, which may give you more fear, more anxiety, or something, and yeah. And the same thing may apply for the new moon, because during the new moon, you have no moon, so you have like darkness, you don't have any source of light, maybe except of the stars, but yeah. And one more time, it means that some animals, like cats for example, they can see very well in the darkness, so it can mean that it is complete darkness, so some animals might go hunting more, and some animals may be hunted more, So I am not saying that it is specifically because of this, or that it is specifically because of our ancestors getting high, dancing, and so on. But there may be something in our genes that is even right now affecting us during the full moon and during the new moon. Okay? So yeah, the first option, as I said, is that it is a placebo effect and nothing more. The second option, as I said, it is something which is very real, but it is something which is, scientifical with the evolution. And the other option is that there is some kind of spiritual thing going on, which also may be scientifical, but science for now doesn't recognize that. But I am not much into the astrology, so I do not know how people explain astrology and why, we are affected by, planets and so on. But imagine that the consciousness or some kind of awareness or something may not be product of our brain, but there is some kind of proto-awareness, proto-consciousness in a very fabric of the universe, in the very fabric of the existence itself, so that everything arises from the consciousness. I am not saying that it is like so, but I think that it's possible. It may be pretty possible that it is like so. And in that case, planets like Moon, Earth, and so on, they can be conscious maybe in some way, in a very, very different way than humans, but they can have some kind of consciousness, some kind of awareness, or if not awareness, they can have some kind of energy, they can have something, and yeah, and I don't know why this energy would be different during the full moon and why it would be different during new moon, but I think that it is pretty possible. And if I would have to guess, I would say that there is something, spiritual about this, mood change or emotion change during the full moon and new moon. Or maybe it is some kind of combination between like these genes, that our ancestors were doing some stuff, and some spirituality, and yeah. So I don't know which one of these is the like real answer, but I know that the new moon and full moon affect me a lot, and I would say that new moon, which is kind of surprising, affect me even more. And this is something that I think that I don't have as a placebo effect, because nobody ever told me that new moon can affect you. I was, watching videos and, about the full moon. And full moon is something that you can clearly see on the sky. But the new moon was something that I didn't ever consider to have some kind of effect. But I started to notice that during the new moon, I feel very weird. And I started to notice that during the new moon, I feel even more weird, even more, anxious or, depressed or something as during the full moon. And I think that it is something which I am not making up. I think that it is not placebo effect, and I would say it is very real. So yeah, some people, when I was reading about this, like some scientific people, suggested that maybe it is because of these subtle changes in a moon gravitational field, because you have some animals, maybe birds, that they can sense a little bit the gravitational field of the Earth. At least scientists think that these birds, when they are flying long distances, that they somehow must feel the gravitational field of the Earth, and that maybe these mood changes are caused because of the subtle changes of the gravitational field of the moon. But when I was researching this, when I was asking ChatGPT and so on, I found out something that I was thinking it is the case, and that's, moon gravitational field doesn't change with the new moon and full moon, because moon is the same size always, it is the same distance from Earth. And if it's not the same distance from Earth, the distance is not changing with full moon and new moon, but it's changing during the year. And and when you have ocean, which is every 6 hours affected by new moon, it's because of the Earth rotation. I guess it's because of the Earth rotation. But the thing is that the moon is same size, whether you can see it or whether you cannot see it. So this is something that I strongly think it's not the case, that we are in some way affected by the changes of the moon's gravity, because the moon's gravity stays the same during the full moon and new moon, or during in between phases. So yeah, and I think that many spiritual people are affected by the moon. And once I was watching some video on YouTube, some girl, I don't know, and she said something very interesting, and she said that muggles, from Harry Potter, people who cannot do magic, they don't feel these emotion changes as much as people who are more spiritual, And this is not saying that spiritual people are better than non-spiritual people or something like that. It may just be that when you are more sensitive in general, more sensitive to other people's emotion, more sensitive to your own emotion, more sensitive to things, it may be that you are simply more sensitive to these moon changes, and maybe that's why people who are more rational, or who are not in touch with their emotions, they don't even notice that there is full moon or new moon or something. One more time, not saying that it is so, but it was something that was kind of interesting, because many of my friends who are not into spirituality or anything, they don't say that moon affect them, you know. Maybe they say that during the full moon they have a little bit worse sleep, but that may be because of the light and so on. And one more time, it can be like the when you don't sleep during the full moon, it may be with the evolution, you know. Even if you would be in the darkness, but for millions of years, you know, animals and then humans had light during the full moon, and they were maybe not sleeping best during that day or those days, and maybe that's something which is in us, that during that time we may not sleep the best. But some people sleep normal, some people, you know, this and that and so on. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to finish this video. This was just my, you know, little opinion, speculation about how and why moon can affect us. I would say that in my opinion, it's definitely, maybe not definitely, but it's not placebo effect. It's something which is happening, and there are two options for me. One of them that it's in some way in our genes, you know, with evolution, and other that it is something spiritual, and or maybe it is some kind of mix. But I personally would say that there is something spiritual about this, which I cannot explain. I'm not into astrology that much. I don't know, but yeah. Okay, so you can type me in the comments if new moon or full moon affect you more. I would be really interested if moon affect you at all, because for me it's new moon is way worse for me than the full moon. But you may have this different, so I would be really interested in reading your opinion or your experience with what phase affects you more and maybe how. So for example, as I said, full moon give me more like an anxiety, fear or something, full moon, and new moon give me more like depression or something, that the world is ending, you know, because it's like the cycle is ending. And yeah. One last thing is that right now what I do, but this has nothing to do with like spirituality or something. My working projects, when I do code or something, I try to do projects on a monthly basis from new moon to new moon, you know. So I have like this cycle. So for example, if I am going to start new YouTube video, for 1 month I am going to be practicing, you know. Then next month I am going to do something. Next month I am going to do something, you know. Or I may just continue do my projects, but somehow I developed that I base my projects on moon phases. And right now it was maybe 3 days ago was the full moon, and I am going to finish my projects. And when is going to be new moon, I am going to decide what I am going to be working on mostly the next 28, 29, 30 days. And yeah. But yeah, I'm going to finish this. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that this gave you little perspective. But yeah, I'm not going to waste more of your time. Thank you and goodbye.